we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K,
because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon finally back with you on the Sick Podcast on this Friday evening. Happy New Year to those who celebrate. Let's get this thing going. Sick Podcast is brought to you by, of course, Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're also brought to you by La Bittt Tibi beer. La Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those cool fall days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery and dépanneurs around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. And are you looking for the ultimate entertainment experience? Playground has it all. Gaming, poker, fine dining, live music, and DJs, all with unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Just minutes away from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground, your top destination for fun. All right, where was I? Just a quick recap. I was frolicking in a field just outside of Columbus, Ohio, and for 4 days. Then I flew home for 2 days, and then I went to Florida for my best friend's bachelor party. It was super fun. Great time. Let's get this thing going. He is my usual Friday guest. I haven't spoken to him in a while because he had to chat with Tony a couple weeks ago when I was still here, but he's back on Friday. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Let me tell you, everyone that says Florida is such an attractive destination for athletes, especially NHLers, other than tax purposes, of course, they probably never spent the summer in Florida. So I was there. I was there at the tail end, and let me tell you, it is unbearably hot over there in September.
Well, you were in Columbus also, which is one of my favorite cities in the NHL to visit. It's a really beautiful place.
You know, I was just outside of Columbus, and interestingly enough, it was also blazing hot over there. They had a little bit of a burn ban at the festival I was at because they were in a crazy drought. Like it hadn't rained for 2 months or something like that. And then, of course, the last day of the festival, let the floodgates open. So, no, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun over the 10 days, and happy to be back. So, I was back in a big way because I was back in the building at the Bell Center for the Canadiens' for their first preseason game that I was back for. So against the Senators, listen, I obviously kept up with the news. Lots of injuries, of course. What else is new? Why should this year be different than any other? But what I can say from that game against the Senators is that this team is clearly frustrated with their situation, like already. I mean, sure, Martin St. Louis, you kind of framed it as they're raring to go for the regular season, but you know, they seem pissed off to me on Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did finally get some good injury news today, and that Caden Goalie practiced in Mont-Tremblant and said that he will be ready to start the season after having his appendix taken out on the first day of training camp, which shocking, right, for this team?
Yeah, exactly. What else?
I think they've been through enough already with the injuries, and when Arber Xhekaj saw Laine, the knee-on-knee hit, and I've said right from the beginning, I didn't think it was a dirty hit. I think it was a case of a minor league player playing against an NHL player. Cedric Parry wasn't prepared for the speed. Laine came in on the move, and his reaction was to stick out his knee. Laine said yesterday when he spoke with reporters in Montreal, he didn't blame Parry. Parry texted him, and Laine was happy about that. It was just one of those things that happened. But the hit on Doc was, when Doc was down on the ice, here's a guy who missed all of last season, played 2 games last season with a knee injury, and it was a headshot to him, and it was a late hit, I thought. And then you see that guy lying on the ice again, and I think guys snapped. I think Arber Xhekaj lost it. I think Kirby Dach admitted he lost it, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially in the preseason. Arber Xhekaj has been taking a lot of heat. Did he overreact? I think he was sending a message that don't mess with us this year. Yeah. We're going to, don't mess with this team. We've had enough. And I think that's why Arber Xhekaj, I think he should be on this team to start the season. I think they need that presence in there. Marty St. Louis didn't have a problem with it. He thought the hit on Stützle was a hockey play. He thought it was just a case of a bigger defenseman. But he was lining him up to hit him. There's no doubt it was a payback for the hit on Doc. And Stützle came across the ice with his head down, and Xhekaj caught him. And that's what he's going to do. And I think it sent a message around the league that the Canadiens don't want to be messed with. They're good. They have younger players on this team. They have small players. They got Lane Hudson coming up with the team this year. You got Cole Caulfield. You need to protect these guys, and that's the way the NHL is. I mean, fighting's still part of the game. Intimidation's still part of the game. Physicality is still part of the game. And I think it was a sign of the Canadiens just saying, that pack mentality that Marty St. Louis keeps talking about, and that sort of brotherhood, that they're going to stick up for each other. And I think that's a good thing.
I think it's fantastic also because, it's nice to see, because I think of the times when Shea Weber was brought in, and, there was a lot of saltiness. We don't have to revisit the saltiness of the trade, but the one thing that a lot of people got sold on when Shea Weber came in was no one's going to mess with Carey Price. No one's going to mess around with him. Well, people still kind of drove the net and still attacked Carey Price, and nothing really happened. Maybe during a penalty kill, they take a couple shots to the lower back, but I found, for the most part, teams had no problem running Price, and he was obviously the crown jewel of the team at the time. Now the crown jewel of the team is kind of separated. There's not really that big piece. It's more of a conglomerate of the core. And Arber Xhekaj just said that's what he said. He said, we've had enough. We're not going to be messed around with anymore. We know what we need to do. And it's preseason. Stop messing with us. You do this in the regular season, this is what's going to happen as well. There's going to be no welcoming committee for Cole Caulfield this season. There's going to be no welcoming committee to the NHL for Lane Hudson. We're not taking any crap, and I love to see it, honestly.
Well, you remember near the end of the Dominic Ducharme era of coaching when Zach Kassian ran over Sam Montembeault and nobody did anything. Nobody did anything. Yeah. It's like, okay, run over our goalie. It doesn't matter. And that's got to stop. Like you can't be soft in the NHL and win, and especially with a young team. Like these young guys, you don't think Lane Hudson feels better on the ice knowing that Arber Xhekaj is out there, that Michael Pezzetta is out there. And the thing with Pezzetta and Xhekaj, they can play. Ryan Reeves in Toronto can't play. He's only there. You saw Reeves try to hit Lane Hudson a couple of times in that preseason game. He couldn't catch him, right? He's too slow. He's too old. Xhekaj and Pezzetta can play the game. Pezzetta is a solid fourth line forward. He goes up there, goes up and down his wing. He hits everything that he can hit. He's a smart player. He knows his limitations. He plays within them. And Arber Xhekaj, rangy defenseman, covers a lot of ground, physical, not fun to play against. Got a big shot. He can play the game. You're putting those guys on the ice not just to be enforcers, not just to start stuff, but if stuff does start, they're there to defend their teammates. And in today's end, you still need those guys in today's NHL. But you can't carry a Ryan Reeves anymore, a guy who can't play, who basically when you do put him on the ice, it's like you're playing shorthanded. The Canadiens aren't shorthanded when they put Arber Xhekaj out on the ice.
It's so. You mentioned Ryan Reeves, and the first thing that popped into my head, it was game 1 of their series. It was against Boston, maybe game 2. And they just, Sheldon Keefe throws Ryan Reeves on the ice. And I was watching the game with my cousin, and I go, I guarantee you, the first time that Ryan Reeves touches the ice, Boston scoring. And lo and behold, 3 minutes into the game, they throw him on the ice. He turns the puck over, and bang, it's in the back of the net.
Yeah, I remember that. And as I said, the days of like, the Canadiens had George Parros at one point, right? That's all he was there for, right? At the end of his career, then he got smoked in that fight, the first game of the season. But those guys, you can't. I think Ryan Reeves is like the last of those guys left. I mean, Nick Delorier with the Flyers is a big, tough guy, but he's sort of like Pizzetta. He can play a fourth line shift. He can go out and dump the puck in and chase and bang. He's not just there to fight or be an enforcer, but he can do that if needed. And Michael Pizzetta is a younger version of that. There's similarities with him. And Michael Pizzetta, I wrote a column recently. Like Michael Pizzetta was a star hockey player as a kid growing up. He was an offensive player, and then he found his role. Marty St. Louis keeps talking. You find your chair or your seat in the NHL. And he told me recently. He said, "My goal is to be the best fourth line left winger in the NHL." He knows his role, and I think he plays it very well.
So, like I said, I was in the building, sitting near a New York fan, and I was sitting beside the person I went with. Shout out Catherine. I'm watching this game, and the guy who's sitting in front of us, he turns around to me at one point, and he goes, "This is hockey." When all the fights started to break out, he goes, "This is what we come here for." And I go, and I was thinking to myself, the old school hockey fan in me says, yeah, I like this. I like a good hockey fight. But the newer age hockey fan in me is saying, would this happen if there was just better policing of the game? It goes beyond referees, because frankly, the referees missing these plays live in action when there's 4 of them on the ice, and you see a player like Kirby Dach laying down on the ice, and nobody had their arm raised in the moment. It's just when that happens right away, something's gonna happen. And it goes beyond that. When you go above to the player safety department in the game against Toronto, I don't think anything happened to Cedric Paré. And frankly, Arber Xhekaj, take the Canadiens fan out of it. Mm-hmm. What he did was it was borderline assault, and he just comes away with a $3,000 fine. So would these things still be happening if there was better policing of the game on the ice, but also consequences post game?
Well, the thing is, despite Gary Bettman saying it's the best officiating in the world in the NHL, it's far from it. But in the officials' defense, they're doing what their bosses at the league headquarters are telling them to do. Mm-hmm. And the NHL sells violence. That's part of what they're selling. It's a big part of what they're selling in the game. I think the game's good enough that they don't need to promote that part of the game. It is still part of the game. It's not nearly what it used to be when I was growing up, and there were bench clearing brawls and third man in and all that kind of stuff. But I think intimidation is always going to be part of hockey. The part that drives me, like guys defending a teammate after a cheap shot hit, is going to happen. It's part of the game. What drives me crazy now is when you see a clean, super clean, open ice hit, no penalty, no doubt about it, shoulder down, clean hit, and you have to fight after that. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, imagine in the NFL, if every time a guy got hit hard, there was a fight, that's all it would be. There'd be fights after every single play. In the NFL, they pat the guy in the butt and they go back to the huddle, and that's it. So they've got to, the NHL Department of Player Safety is a joke. They always protect the attacker instead of the guy who was attacked. Always. George Parros is the head of the NHL Player Safety. Like, how do you put a guy whose job in hockey was to beat people up in charge of player safety? Why is it not like a Paul Kariya or a former skilled player, or at least one of each to sort of balance it out? But it's what the NHL wants. The NHL selling violence is a big part of their game, and they think that it sells. And when you're in arenas, fans are cheering when this stuff is going on. We're learning more and more now about these enforcers and the price they pay later in life with CTE and the struggles. And there's many, many cases of it that we've seen. So I think about that when I see fights happening now, but intimidation is always going to be part of the game. And when the referees don't police it properly, when hits like that aren't taken care of, the players are going to take it into their own hands. And I think the NHL wants it that way. I don't think they want it to change, so it's not going to change.
It's really tough because sometimes there's a cheap shot. We know what's gonna happen, like you said. But and it's just there needs to be a shift I think, in the mindset of players. And the only way to do that is really just it's tweaking the punishment. And when I say punishment, I don't mean suspension and I don't mean fine. Because listen, nobody likes to pay money, but rich people have no problem paying money.
No,
they have an easier time paying money than I do. I'll say that.
Arber Xhekaj is one of the richest guys in the NHL, but $3,000 to him is probably like $20 or $50 to you or I.
And you know what? And you know what? I'm sure Patrick Laine with an $8.7 million contract, he threw him a couple bucks for it. But you know, forget that. It's more. I'm thinking on the ice. You know, in the NFL, you bring up the football when there's a personal foul, like a headshot or, you know, attacking a quarterback's knees, hitting the quarterback when he's in a vulnerable position, whatever the case may be. Whenever there's a personal foul penalty, it's 15 yards and a first down. That is so significant no matter where you are on the field, no matter what it is in the drive. 15 yards, automatic first down, and if that player takes another one, you're out of the game. It's so you see players hold back. Obviously, they still happen, but you see players hold back. And when it does happen, it's such a kick to the nuts of the team of the player that took that penalty, because it really just cripples you. It extends the drive. It brings you closer, probably puts you in field goal range. The NHL needs to tweak the punishment, maybe make every penalty a 2-minute major, or maybe make every penalty a 3-minute major, something that is really going to make you think about doing something stupid in the moment, because you see players on the NFL field hold back in the moment. They don't do stupid things anymore. Whereas hockey players, yeah, it's a fast game. Every sport's a fast game. Everything's a bang, bang play. You need something for these guys to really think and adjust their mindset for it to be worth it for them to not do these things.
Well, headshots, like a game misconduct and a 1-game suspension would be very effective. I think you look at the game misconduct that Xhekaj took in the game where Reinbacher was also hurt. So first period, they played like 45 minutes of that game with 4 defensemen, which, you know, so I think if it was a regular season game, I think Marty's saying that we might have been a little bit more upset with Xhekaj's absence, because that's basically costing you a game. It's hard to win when you're playing with 4 defensemen in the NHL for 45 minutes. But the other difference with the hockey and other sports is that hockey has no out of bounds, right? And guys are carrying weapons in their hands in a hockey stick. And it's so fast and it's so physical, and it gets faster and it gets more physical every year. And so things are going to happen like they hit on Laine, which again, I think it was a case of a minor league player playing against a pro player. That's another discussion of preseason games when you have guys playing against NHL caliber players who aren't good enough to play against NHL caliber players. Perry's 25 years old, never played a game in the NHL. He's hoping to earn a job with the Marlies. He's not even in the Leafs plans, and he's out there against the star like Laine and reacts to his move by sticking out his knee. But it's they got to do something with taking the headshots out. And I think a headshot, if it's a 5-minute major, a game misconduct, and a 1-game suspension, it sort of takes it out of the hands of George Parros. Also, it's automatic, 1-game suspension coming up, and I think that would change things a little bit. I think it would make guys be less hesitant to try and hurt another player. And Xhekaj that hit on the Ottawa player, I think, was he trying to injure him? Yeah, he was trying to hit him as hard as he could. But I agree with Marty a bit. When I watched the replay again, he sort of came up, and if it was a shorter defenseman or a taller player, it wouldn't have been a hit to the head. Yeah, but it was a hit to the head. And I think they need to get to the point where you take the replay part out or whatever. If you hit a guy in the head, 5-minute major and a game misconduct. And there's going to be some that might be borderline, and you'll say, oh, that's too much of a punishment. But at the end of the day, I think it's the only way they're going to get these sort of headshots out of the game. I mean, like what we've seen in the preseason, what's going to be like once the regular season starts? I mean, you got the Senators playing the Canadiens again tomorrow night in Ottawa. Like, what's going to happen there? Is that things going to get out of hand again? And a lot of it goes back to, as you were saying, it's the officiating. When you got 4 guys on the ice and the amount of stuff they miss, or do they really miss it, or are they just like listening to their bosses in their ears who want these big hits to continue to be part of the game?
The other thing for me is that, you cut the officials some slack, because I think that's the only job in the world where people really expect 100% performance. You know, I mess up at my job. It's not even a slap on the wrist. It's just, hey, Matt, you missed something here. Oh, sorry, my bad. And then you move on to the next. Whereas like officials, everything they miss, it's massive. It's huge, which, you know, it's a tough job. But at the same time, when you got 4 on the ice, someone's got to be like, they have to have a vision plan, maybe, or just, you know, maybe I really hope it wouldn't come to this, but like an eye in the sky kind of thing. Yeah. They had a 5th one. I hope it doesn't have to get to that. But yeah, anyways.
I think that'd be a good idea, actually. I think that's a good idea to have a 5th referee. The game's so fast. And you really notice it, like, from the press box or on TV, the game looks a lot slower than it is than you're down sitting in the 5th row or the 10th row, or you know, I know covering those Kraft Hockeyville games there a couple of seasons ago in little tiny rinks and sitting like 10 rows up watching. And it's incredible, even just watching the Habs at practice and broadcast. Yeah. The game is so fast, and it just keeps getting faster, and the players keep getting bigger and stronger. So to me, having a 5th official up in the press box or wherever with video replays and a walkie-talkie or some kind of a system to talk to the referees on the ice, I think that's a good idea.
It's just, you know, I find there's a lot of the reason why I say I hope it doesn't get to that is because there's just so many stoppages in the game. Yeah, well, you gotta think of how many more there would be if there was an eye in the sky kind of thing. You know, oh, that might be offside. Oh, that might be might have been ice.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the goalie interference reviews are the worst. I mean, nobody knows what goalie interference is anymore. And
I can't.
And now the offsides by a fingernail that take back. I don't think that was the intention when that rule.
No, it wasn't.
It was for, you know, blatant sort of offside rules. I don't know how you was it offside? Yes, it was offside by a fingernail. But it's the video reviews really extend the games and they take the flow out of the games a lot of times too, and they take so long. Like the goalie. I mean, if it's video review and within 45 seconds you can't overrule the call on the ice, go with the call on the ice.
Yeah,
if it takes that much analysis to figure it out, go with the call on the ice.
I remember when the NFL, I don't know if it was an actual thing, but it was definitely a thing in the video games. So it was, you would challenge a play and there would be a 2 or 3 minute timer, and if the ref couldn't see it, it's over.
Yeah.
Call in the field stands, call in the ice stands. You want to take away all controversy. How about this for forward thinking? I know Pierre LeBrun has suggested this a couple times in his articles, you know, in the off-season articles of changes he would make. Just take out offside completely. How about that? You know, people could put, there'll be a lot more goals. And hey, if you want to cherry pick, guess what? You're leaving your team in the offense, in the defensive zone on a penalty kill, essentially. Yeah. So
Phil Kessel might be looking back and play.
He'd be one of the top scorers again. Yeah. Okay. So
that's an interesting thought. You know,
it would take away. Well, because you know what I find? It takes away a lot from the game. Forget trying to get more goals in the game. Well, I find what really takes away from the beauty of hockey, and, you know, when it's free flowing and it's going, it's fantastic. But I find a lot of things we're always talking about post game is controversy of the offside, and then controversy of this call that was reviewable. Why isn't that reviewable? Let's just take out the offside. If there's so much controversy about it, you know, an offside happened 2 minutes earlier in the play, and it's basically irrelevant to the play at this point. And then, you know, team scores, and then bang, throw the coach's challenge, and then all of a sudden you're adding 3 minutes back onto the clock because it happened 3 minutes earlier. It's just take it out of the game.
Well, taking the red line certainly opened up the game. It'd be interesting. That's one of those things I'd almost need to see it in a game, like in a preseason game, just to see what it would look like. Like, would it really mess things up? Because it might make the game so different, but it would be fun to watch to have a preseason game played like that.
Well, I know they have like the test center for the NHL. I remember they were testing bigger nets. They were testing, you know, wider lines, thinner lines, and all this stuff. Just test it out, NHL. You know what? Just cut me a check. It's fine. Any amount, I'll take any amount. Doesn't matter. You're welcome. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about moving forward. Okay, so moving forward, the Canadiens got the Sens tomorrow night in kind of a revenge game. What do you think Martin St. Louis' messages in the locker room before that game? I think if this was a regular season game, I think you might see some antics. But I think it's going to be, guys, the regular season's coming up.
Yeah.
We're already banged up. Let's foot off the gas here. And, we're going to try to win the game, but don't kill yourselves out there.
Yeah, but one cheap shot can change that quickly. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the lineup he goes with. Like, is he going to go with, like, his opening night lineup, more or less, to give them one game together before the season starts, sort of set up the way he wants them to be set up? As Pat Hickey wrote in one of his columns, said, he felt for season ticket holders at the Bell Center the last game who pay regular season prices and basically got a Laval Rocket lineup more or less out there for the Canadiens. But that's my interest. Is he going to go with his main lineup, or is he just going to wait until opening night and then put the lineup together then? You think it would make sense to me to go with your sort of open night lineup against Ottawa just to get the guys together and your number one power play working together. Power play's 0 for 25, I believe it is now in the preseason. They haven't really had the number one units together at all in that regard. So I wouldn't expect any more brawls or whatever. But again, one cheap shot changes all that, right?
It's kind of, what was surprising to me, just to go back to that cheap shot on Kirby Dach, is that Ridley Gregg is an NHL player. You don't need to. I don't know Ottawa's situation. I don't know if his spot is completely solidified or if he's one of those guys like a Michael Pezzetta who's constantly fighting to be in the lineup. But you're an NHL player. It's the preseason. What are you doing trying to end a guy's season like that? It doesn't excuse it, but that's something you expect maybe on paper from an AHLer like a Cedric Paré. Okay, you're trying to make a name for yourself. You blow up a big player. I don't think that's the right way of going about it, even if that's your game and your role, but that's another story. But you're an NHL player. You've played games. You know what it's about. What the hell are you doing in the preseason going after a guy who just came back from major knee injury?
I mean, Mike Matheson told me after the game, he said, you want guys to go hard in the preseason. Like, you're getting ready for the season. You want to play hard. You want to, but there's a line. Like, it's not right. Like, to me, that's crossing the line. When you get a guy coming over the blue line with a late hit to the head, and as you say, an NHL player. I mean, there's a line in the preseason, I think, where you want to be physical, you want to get ready for the season, but you also got to respect the players, the injury factor, right? Both for your teammates and for the other team. So, that hit on Dach, look what that led to. You had 3 Senators guys who didn't finish the game. They were all okay afterwards. But imagine like losing a Brady Tkachuk for him retaliating for Xhekaj's hit that was a retaliation of the other. It's a chain reaction, right, in the NHL. So, I think players just need to be smarter and like, for whatever reason they aren't, they're union brothers and all this stuff and everything else, but they're trying to kill each other at times and the cheap shots. And as I said, the NHL, Department of Player Safety doesn't do a very good job of protecting the safety of its players.
When it all fizzles out, hopefully the positive that could come from this is that there's fiery rivalries now between the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that game on October 9th, I think that is going to be, season openers / home openers are always, pretty intense, but I find the energy of it, can fizzle out about 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
5 to 10 minutes. And then it's just a regular hockey game. I think that energy is going to be carried through not the full 60 minutes, but I think the full first 20. You're going to see massive intensity between those two teams, because even though it was all settled and Patrick Laine said what he said and Cedric Paré came out with his statement, I think those two teams, you still injured my guy. That's all you did. At the end, when the chips are down, you can say what you want. You still injured my guy. Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, with the retaliation after clean hits now, after the Stutzel hit, Jaden Struble laid him out later on with a clean clean, solid body check, caught him with his head down and flattened him. So I don't understand like the sort of the code in the NHL where you throw a big hit now, a big clean hit, and you got to fight the guy. Shouldn't the code be you throw a big clean hit? Okay, mark that guy's number down, and the next time he comes through center ice, I'm gonna nail him with a clean, solid body check. To me, that's what the payback should be. Wait for your moment, wait for the guy coming over like Struble did, and Stutzel came over, he had his head down, shoulder down, and he flattened him. To me, that's what the payback should be. It drives me crazy that it's like you can't throw a legal body check in the NHL anymore without having to fight somebody.
Whatever happened to, I hate to bring it back to football because, our viewers and listeners just, it drives them crazy. But whatever happened to, you throw a big hit and then you tap the whistle gets blown, you tap someone on the butt, say, good hit. Whatever happened to that,
Yeah. No, I know.
Need some of that.
No, a buddy of mine played Concordia. He was a defensive back years ago, safety, and Michael Souls went up the middle, and Michael Souls at that point was best football player in Canada in college. And my buddy caught him, smoked him, caught him coming up the middle, nailed him, put Michael Souls back on his butt. My buddy got up. He said he was seeing stars. It's the hardest I ever hit anybody and the hardest I'd ever got hit. And he said Souls got up and patted him on the butt and went, good hit, and went back to the huddle. And my buddy went to the wrong sideline because I guess he had a concussion. He went to the McGill sideline instead of the Concordia sideline. But that's sort of the mentality in football, right? You get a big hit, you appreciate, okay, good hit, buddy, and you go back. But hockey is, unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's a great video for all of our viewers and listeners that are interested in this kind of thing. Look up Andrew Luck, Sportsmanship NFL, and I think he gets interviewed by an etiquette, a real etiquette specialist, not football etiquette. Like I'm talking fork on the left and knife on the right, kind of thing. And she goes, and there's just clips of him playing. He's mic'd up. He's getting battered, smoked. This is a quarterback getting absolutely smoked out there. And he's like asking for people, the opposing team, he's asking for their hand to help him up. They help him up. Good hit, man. Stay healthy. Have a good one. And then the next play goes, and it's just constant clips of him doing that. I think it's fantastic. I think it gets a real kick out. I get a kick out of it anyways.
Yeah. The code in hockey is the code, and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to change, unfortunately.
So season starts October 9th. Honestly, I can't believe it. We've been talking about, it's coming up quick. By this time next year, Stu, we're talking about, we're either previewing or talking about the Canadiens against the Boston Bruins.
Well, they play the Bruins. They play the Leafs Wednesday, and then the Bruins Thursday in Boston. So they got
so
what a start to the season. That's exactly.
Exactly.
NFL schedule maker did a favor at Canadiens fans.
Yeah, well, you know what? It builds hype. It builds hype, and people are gonna be excited about it. So, talk about the Bruins, man. I don't know what the hell kind of team they're gonna be this year. I think this is the first year where people are a little less apprehensive to say this is gonna be the downfall of the Boston Bruins. The
Cam Neely comments reminded me of Marc Bergevin, that a guy who manages a hockey team with his emotions, and that never ends well. And you got to separate the business side from the emotional side. But Cam Neely and Marc Bergevin both run hockey teams the same way they played. You slash me, I'll slash you back even harder. You punch me in the head, I'll punch you in the head twice. So it's that was interesting to see what's going on there with their goalie and how that's going to turn out. But I mean, especially in today's NHL world, man, you can't run a hockey team on emotions. And that's what's the Canadiens are lucky right now, because Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes don't run this team on emotions. I don't know if you've been watching that Crave Inside the Rebuild series and some of the stuff they have in the locker rooms. The most recent episode I watched about Jake Allen, how they were really had to trade Jake Allen. They didn't want to have the 3 goalie system again, but nothing's personal and nothing's emotional. It's just business, right? They're running a business, and that's the way you have to do it. And Cam Neely obviously hasn't learned that yet. And you see that when the Bruins are playing and they go up to the private loge and he's throwing water bottles around or looking for somebody to throw out of the press box or stuff like that. But I don't know if that old boys mentality works in today's NHL when you're running a hockey team.
Well, we're going to see if it fizzles out finally, because, it feels like every year we're saying Is this the downfall of the Bruins? Is this the downfall of the Bruins? Just like when the Patriots, in the Patriots in football, it was going to be the downfall of the Patriots. This is going to be the year. No, this is going to be the year. I think this actually might be the year. Now, I know there's a lot of Bruins fans in Montreal, and a lot of Bruins fans watch this podcast, and we appreciate you. But eventually, when you say that, when you pick a team that has been just so good for so long, and you keep saying this is going to be the year, eventually you're going to be right. And it's looking like this might be the year.
I got a lot of friends who are Bruins fans, and to be in a salary cap NHL and make the playoffs year after year after year after year with roster changes, with Tampa's like that also. That's what the Canadiens are trying to build, right? They've said that right from day one. They want to build a team that making the playoffs is a given. We're going to be in the playoffs every year. And that's what they're building towards, and that's hard to do in 32-team league with a salary cap. But Boston, as I'm saying, Cam Neely, running on your emotions isn't really the best way to do things. But they have had success keeping teams in. I mean, it's not just him, obviously, but the Bruins have had a lot of success, and that's sort of a model that the Canadiens are looking to follow. I think they have the right people in place to try and get to that model, but it's still going to take a little while. I mean, they're not. I didn't see the Canadiens making the playoffs this year with Patrick Laine. I certainly don't see them making it without him for 2 to 3 months, and hopefully that prognosis ends up being correct, because there was many medical opinions, and Laine said yesterday it was him who decided that he wasn't going to have the knee operation. He was just going to try and rehab it, and they're given a timeline of 2 to 3 months. So we'll see, but I'm looking forward. It's hard to believe, like you said, that next Wednesday the puck drops, and hopefully everybody stays healthy on the Canadiens through Saturday's game in Ottawa.
I mean, I think I'm excited for this season. I think we're going to see a different Canadiens team. Now, they've always been, over the past few years, they've been fun to watch. But, I think we're going to start to see players get a little more pissed off with losing. I think this is where they're going to be, they don't want to be talked about as, they were in every game though. It's only a 1 goal difference. I think this is where the 1 goal difference, the 1 goal games are going to start to weigh on the Canadiens, because their 1 goal games is okay. Sure, you're right there. But the good teams, just like in any sport, they always win the close ones. That's why the Kansas City Chiefs are the best. That's why the Boston Celtics were the best last year. The best teams win the close ones, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I think players are always pissed off when they lose. I don't think you get to the NHL or the NBA or the NFL without being pissed off when you lose. It's going to be interesting to see, is Marty St. Louis, how pissed off is Marty St. Louis going to be? Because after they lost in the last 2 seasons, he's always looked at the bright side, right? It's about development, it's about player development, it's about the future, and he's right, and that's the way you got to go in a rebuild. But is this the season where he starts to get more pissed off over losing? Is this the season where Gorton and Hughes start to put more pressure on Marty St. Louis to try and win games, or is it still going to be all about development? Is it still? I think it's going to be still going to be 90% about development. I think they made that pretty clear at the golf tournament when they said their goal was to be in the mix. It wasn't to get in the playoffs; it was to at least be in the mix to make it. But the thing I'm looking forward to over the next couple of days too is I want to see what the final roster is going to be. Like, they got some decisions to make. On defense now, Goulie's going to play. He says he's going to be ready to play next Wednesday night. So who's the odd man out? Who's the guy who's going back to Laval? Is it it's not going to be Justin Barron, I don't think, because he's got to clear waivers, and they're going to keep him for the same reasons they kept Caden Primo last year. To me, it's like Jaden Struble might be the odd man out, because I think they want to start the season with Logan Mailloux to see what he can do in the NHL. I think they already know what they've seen enough of Jaden Struble to know what he can and can't do in the NHL. What do they do on forward? Who replaces Laine on that second line? Does Heineman make the team? Does Kapanen make the team? They got some.
I like Kapanen. I've liked Kapanen through the season.
I like both of those players. I like Heineman. I like Kapanen. Heineman's a power forward. He plays a physical game. Luke Tuck's another guy like that, similar type of player. But I think Kapanen just has the edge on just that offensive ability. Plus the fact that he can play center or he can play on the wing. And if they put him with, let's say they put him with Doc and Newhook both struggle on faceoffs. Now you would have 3 guys on the same line that can all take faceoffs, and they can sort of switch around, always take them on their strong side, hoping that helps. But Marty St. Louis has some tough decisions to make. And as you said, that's a good thing. Like in previous years, they haven't had any tough decisions to make, right? It was just if you're warm body, you made the team. And with the contract situations, you made the team. So they're going to have some tough decisions to make. And it's that's why I say I'm looking forward to seeing what the roster is going to be like Saturday for the final preseason game. And then I imagine they have a day off Sunday. So I imagine the cuts will probably be announced Monday. And then, practice Monday, Tuesday with the teams you're going to start the season with. And then they play on Wednesday. But at this point, I can see Struble maybe being the odd man out. It's also going to be interesting to see, do they carry 2 extra forwards and 1 extra defense or vice versa? But with Kapanen, if Kapanen doesn't make the team, he's got to go back to Europe, right? He's got to go back and play in Sweden. So how much does that factor in? Like, do they think his development is better playing the full season here on the North American rink in the NHL, like what they did with Slafkovsky? And if it was me, I'd sort of be leaning towards that at this point.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep, like you said, I think Struble will be the odd man out. And I think they're going to keep Kapanen, and they're going to keep someone else on the forward side just because they have so many players that I think are just, it's unfinished business to just kind of cut it after Ottawa. They kind of want to see what they could do still.
Yeah, well, Pizzetta, I think Pizzetta's going to be your 12th or 13th guy. He's not going to be a regular in the lineup, but he's going to be there. And he's a perfect guy for that role. Great teammate, won't complain if he sits out 5 games in a row. Good presence, good veteran. In the last season of his contract, I can see him I don't see him going back to Laval.
And the thing with Jayden Struble is, I'm sure whoever makes this decision in Martin St. Louis, Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, whoever it is, they're going to be in his ear saying, "Hey, keep playing like you did in the preseason. You're one little nick on a player that needs to sit out for an injury. You're right back up. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, and go down and play a ton of minutes. And maybe I'll be proven wrong and Struble stays and somebody else goes on. But I think the ceiling for Logan Mayo is much higher than the ceiling for Jayden Struble. One's a first round pick and one's not. And I think they want to see what Logan Mayo can do in the NHL. And do you wait another year? Do you send him back to Laval again? What does that do for his confidence? What does that do for his morale? To me, you start him here. And, they played him last year with Arber Xhekaj in Laval for, I think it was 17 games, whatever it was, when Xhekaj went down. I think part of that thinking was they could play together this season. And I think that could be the third pairing when the season starts. I can see David Savard with Lane Hudson, and I can see Matheson with Goalie as the number 1 pairing now that Goalie says he's fine to play. And with Struble, again, it's not a knock on Struble. Sometimes it's not always about the waivers and contracts and everything else factors in. And Justin Barron, if they put him on waivers, somebody's going to claim him. So a 22-year-old first round pick with some NHL experience with a really reasonable contract. The team would. I don't see him clearing waivers the same way they didn't think that Caden Primo would clear waivers last year.
So I think just back to your initial point of it's going to be still 90% development. I agree. However, I think this is also where the screws get tightened a little bit. There's no more, playing free flow. Oh, I gave away the puck. Big mistake. No problem. There's no consequence. I think you're going to start to see players sitting for a shift or two or a period. You make a mistake, not at the beginning of the season, but you start to make a mistake, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in the press box. But I think it's going to be a hard thing for Martin St. Louis to balance because different players require different treatment. So for example, how hard do you get on Caden Goalie? Because you're a very solid player. You play like a veteran. You play like you're 26 years old. However, you're still young, but you've been in the NHL now for a couple of years. You're not young anymore. You know what this is about. Where Arber Xhekaj, you play a tough game. We need you on the team, but again, you can't mess up all the time. You know what this is about. You're no longer that great story of an undrafted player who worked at Costco. No, you're Arber Xhekaj. You're a hockey player. You're an NHL player. So I'm curious to see how and when these screws start to get tightened, the leash gets a little bit shorter, and these things start to progress. Because I think that's coming this year, frankly.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting too because they're going to be young on defense, right? And they gave up the third most shots in the NHL last season. I don't see them really improving that much on that, just because they are going to be so young on defense, and there's going to be mistakes with, if Logan Mayo does start, and I'm saying, they want to see what he can do in the NHL. He's going to make mistakes. He's a young defenseman breaking into the league. Lane Hudson's going to make mistakes, as great as he is offensively, breaking into the league. That's just part of it, and I think that they're aware of that, which is why I think they didn't want to say that the goal is. That's why they said their goal is to be in the mix. I think the Canadiens realize there's still going to be some growing pains moving forward here, but it will be interesting to see on how much more they want to sort of crack down on the defensive play. So much focus has been on the offensive play, and it's interesting. I was talking with former Canadiens defenseman Rick Green about this the other day, about playing in front of Patrick Roy, and he said, the defense that the Canadiens had back then, we just needed Patrick to make the first save. And if Patrick saw it, he was going to stop it. So their thing was to clear the path, make sure he saw all the shots, and then win the physical battle, get the rebound, and clear it. And they did that a lot. And when you look back when the Canadiens went to the Stanley Cup final in 2021, when they had the 4 Clydesdales there on defense, the big guys, again, it was Hope Carey Price makes the save. He did have to stop the rebound quite a lot also, but maybe only 1 rebound, and then they were able to clear it out. So that's the thing with Montembeault and Primo going into this season. Another sort of question mark, like these guys, Primo's never played more than 41 games in the NHL. Montembeault's never played more than 41 games in the NHL. Primo's never played more than, I think it's 27. Both of those were last year. So those goalies in front of a young defense are going to make breakdowns. It's not going to be easy. That's another reason why I don't think this team is ready to make the playoffs this season. And why I think they'll come down a little harder on, after losses, and maybe a little bit firmer, but I think they're still a year or two away from where losing isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
I think now it's still the compete level. And that's one thing that has been impressive since Marty St. Louis took over this team coaching. The compete level is there. Like, they compete every game. There's maybe 4 games last year where the compete level wasn't 100%. So they'll be looking for that again this year. But again, they don't, in my opinion, they just don't have the team yet that's ready to make the playoffs. But little baby steps, right? A little bit of progression every year in this rebuild.
So the part that, just to play devil's advocate, is the part that I could see is that not every team that's supposed to make the playoffs makes the playoffs. And we saw that with Seattle. They didn't make it in their first year, but they definitely made it in their second year. And you kind of had, they had Vince Dunn, but they kind of had a hodgepodge on defense when they made the playoffs. And it's just the part that I see is that you could, if you're playing a system, or in Martin St. Louis' instance, if you're playing within these concepts, it doesn't matter who you are. It should be plug and play. Plug and play. Everyone serves a purpose. You're playing not as an individual. You're playing as a unit, and it could carry you very far. And I think that's what it needs to get to for the Canadiens, if they're just going to continue with a young defense and no real, star number one. Maybe Caden Gooley will emerge as the number one. Maybe Lane Hudson will emerge as the number one. But for right now, there's no, or Mike Matheson. There's no person you circle on the Canadiens. You go, this is the guy who's leading the blue line. This is the guy to look to. I
think Matheson's the number one guy. And you're talking about teams that you think are going to make the playoffs or aren't. 2 years ago, New Jersey had 112 points,
and then they crashed out.
Last season they had 81. So there's always things that are going to happen. But I think Matheson's the number one guy. So
then I think you need Matheson to be a leader on that blue line and say, hey guys, we've seen the standings the past 3 years, past however many years I've been here. I'm sick of being in here. No one believes in us. We're going to try to, sure, we want to be in the mix, but I want to make it there. I've had enough. I want to make it there. Let's play as tight and as solid as we can. Just, we're going to play our game. Don't change your game. Don't become the chip and chase team, but we need to smarten up out there. We need to start taking better calculated risks.
Yeah, and I think Matheson and David Savard are 2 guys that can do that. I mean, I think the older you get in the NHL, not that you ever really accept losing, but I think you accept it even less. Like when you realize there's more games behind you in your career than there are ahead of you, And you haven't won a Stanley Cup. David Savard has. Mike Matheson hasn't. Guy like Brendan Gallagher, right? A lot of miles behind him, not as many miles ahead. Those are the guys who really, really hate losing. Nick Suzuki hates losing. I mean, Yuri Slafkovsky hates losing. I'm saying players don't like to lose. They hate it. And they're the players. The players at the golf are all saying we're going to make the playoffs. We believe we can, and they believe that. They honestly believe that they can.
They should.
They believe that they should, and you hope that's the case. You don't want players going in thinking they can't make it. I don't think they have what it takes to make it. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But that's just the mentality these guys have going in, and they don't like to lose. But you're right. You need those veteran guys that, maybe the younger guys, you lose 3 in a row and they're sort of, okay. Well, I think that the video we've seen of Connor McDavid going ballistic in the locker room with his teammates, we need more. I think that's, you need some guys on a young rebuilding team that are going to do that. And I think Nick Suzuki can do that. I think Mike Matheson can do that. I think David Savard can do that. Brendan Gallagher can do that. But like Matheson and Savard and Suzuki, they're sort of soft-spoken, sort of quiet guys. And when those guys get angry, that really has more of an impact than when a guy who's just losing his cool all the time does. And that's Connor McDavid. That video we saw in the Stanley Cup final, him just going nuts. You don't expect that from Connor McDavid. And we don't see inside the locker room that often. Maybe the teammates don't expect that. So when you do get that, it's like, whoa. So the Canadiens need those guys just to show that losing can't be acceptable as we move forward in this rebuild. It can't be acceptable. Learn from the losses and move on, but don't accept losing.
That's it, because it could get to, I don't listen. I think they have the right people above, because it all starts from the top. They've all, Jeff Gorton has been a winner throughout his career. He's basically built this New York Rangers team that's on the ice right now. Kent Hughes has, many of his clients have won Stanley Cups, and he knows what it takes, what they put in to win. So now it's, look no further. Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, they were both in the Stanley Cup final. Yeah. They know what it takes to get there. So they can't lose that, because once losing becomes the norm, that's when you become Buffalo. That's when you become Ottawa. That's when you become Detroit. You don't want that.
Buffalo at 12 years in a row, they haven't made the playoffs, something like that. But you go back.
This is the year Buffalo.
When you hired Jeff Gorton, he had said at the time that Dominic Ducharme was going to be the coach at least till the end of the season. Remember that? And then he wasn't. And that game we were talking about earlier, when Montembeault got run over by Cassian and nobody did anything, that was a case of a team that had given up. We don't care. Run our goalie. We're going to lose. It doesn't matter. Where are we going after the game? We're going to have a beer somewhere. They didn't care anymore. It got to that. That's when he realized we got to do something. This cannot continue. We cannot continue with a team that accepts losing, accepts their goalie getting run over and doesn't do anything. That's unacceptable. And that's why Dominic Ducharme was fired and Marty St. Louis was brought in. And that we saw that attitude change right from that day. Yeah. One, when Marty came in and the players talked about the first speech he made in the locker room, and it just fired guys up. And he's been able to continue to keep those guys fired up now heading into his third full season of this rebuild. And that's one of the key, if not the key element of coaching in any pro sports now, is guys got to want to compete for you. They got to want to play for you, and they got to believe in the systems and the concepts that you're selling them.
So, we'll see. Maybe we'll see how fired up they are tomorrow, but we're definitely going to see how fired up they are on October 9th when they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, Toronto on Wednesday, Boston on Thursday, and the Senators on Saturday.
Woo! Let's go. And then I believe it's the Pittsburgh Penguins on Thanksgiving Monday.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
Loaded schedule to start the season. Yeah. That's the way to do it. You want to get fans fired up. You want to keep the momentum going. You want to steal some thunder from the NFL and the MLB playoffs. That's the way to do it. Stu, thank you very much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
I'm Matt Ohayon. Okay, don't worry. We still don't go anywhere. We still got some business to take care of. Sick Podcast is brought to you by sportsbuffshop.com. Shop all your licensed lifestyle apparel, including hoodies, caps, and tees of your favorite teams from all major leagues at sportsbuffshop.com. Use code SICK10 for 10% off all their items. Betway is a leading global betting and gaming brand. For your gut instinct, go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code right there I'm pointing to her. It's getting used to the camera, reverse camera thing. QR code is right there to join the action. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. Now, fall is the perfect time to start a new job. Unlock your potential with secure payment experts. Secure is the highest paying English speaking call center in the Montreal area. That's right. This job is English only. No French required, which we know is next to impossible to find here in Montreal. They are always growing the team, and with 2 great locations, downtown Montreal and the West Island, Secure offers a fun and unique culture with great earning potential. Plus, no experience is necessary. So call them now and apply for a job if you're looking for a job. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll catch you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.